Hi guys, welcome back to Trail Talk. I'm your host, Aaron Shimmons. Thanks for joining us for our trail and ultra running show. And this week, it's another one of our special Media Pass episodes with Mathias Eichler and Troy Meadows, two other podcasters and media people in the world of trail and ultra running. So we've got a stacked show. We've got the news that broke today about Sabrina Stanley signing with OnlyFans. We dig deep into this one. We've got Killian and the PTRA on a hot minute. We've got Trailcon and On Running sponsorship of the first full year of that event. And then we have a deep dive into the Golden Trail World Series flower format. And I mean, it's a whole can of worms once we've gone there. So tune in for that coming up in a second. But first off, I also want to give a shout out to our sponsors, xmiles.co.uk. It's a nutrition shop. It's based in the UK. They do everything that you need, and we've got a discount for you. So use code Iron Over Mountains, or use the link in the bio, or link in the description, wherever you want to get your links. And support our sponsors because that keeps the show going. Another one of our great sponsors is GOREWEAR with the discount code Iron Over Mountains 30 for a massive 30% off. I've seen all of the spring summer 25 collection and stuff is good. I mean, the new windbreaker, the new colorways on the jackets and stuff, it's just really good. So check out GOREWEAR and take advantage of the great discount. Last plug, I promise you, Trail Talk WhatsApp community, what a great fun bunch of people chatting about shoes, racing, gear, nutrition, questions each and every day from our, I think at this point, 370 members, global community, link in bio, link in description. Go off and join the community. We'd love to have you. Be sure to give an introduction when you join. Where are you from? What's your favorite shoes? What's your favorite race? All of this stuff. Yeah, it's just something which I created, and it's got a life of its own, and I kind of love it. Anyway, I've rambled along long enough. Let's go and chat with Mathias and Troy. Hi guys, welcome to Trail Talk. Good to see you guys again for our Media Pass show. I'll start off with you, Mathias. How's things with you on the West Coast?
Very, very busy right now. You can be very lucky that you got me for a couple hours for this recording. This week is insanely busy working on the Trail Running Film Festival. In 2 days, we are launching the 2025 tour. And yeah, super excited. Got incredible films, 100 locations already signed up. So it's going to be a really, really cool experience for folks who want to see trail running in their community, right? Bringing these global films into their local theaters, local running stores. It's incredible project to work on, and I'm honored that I get to do this, and it's always super fun. And seeing it now for the third year on the calendar, building really a consistent sort of spring kickoff. Yes, let's watch some trail running films before the mountains melt out. So busy and stoked.
This thing goes around quite a bit, so rather than go into a fully fledged advertisement here, where can people find out more?
Trailfilmfest.com.
Check it out. Troy, how's it going, mate?
Life is good. I got 100 milers on the docket for 2025, so training is in full effect. I did my first, what I would say, real week of a block. So two workouts, one Wednesday, one Saturday, and legs feel good. I will say yesterday's long run, I was like, oh, this is not fun. So that means I guess I did it right, and today's a day off and I feel pretty good. But, other than that, just like hammering away on the pod and, just trying to figure out what the next chapter of my life looks like while I train for 100 milers. So
heavy stuff.
Yeah,
Let's definitely park it. Guys, we've got some fun things on docket for today, so let's crack on into it. Sabrina Stanley. Today, this very day that we're recording this news has been broke that she is now an OnlyFans athlete, whatever that means. And shout out to Josh in the Trail Talk WhatsApp community who actually picked this many weeks ago. I'm going to say like over 4 weeks ago he picked this out. So well done, Josh, on that. I thought it was maybe a few other options, but Mathias, what do you think of this announcement? How does this sit with you?
3 guys talking about a OnlyFans partnership, sponsorship by a woman trail runner.
We are allowed an opinion.
No, we are. Let's try to do this without any innuendos, shall we? So I personally know very little about OnlyFans, and I guess my hottest take is that OnlyFans is a company that it doesn't sit in Silicon Valley, and if we can break that stranglehold of all media goes through Zuckerberg and friends, then I'm good with that.
My goodness, are you coming with the political
No,
innuendos already?
No, this is not for me. This is less political. It's about I'm old enough. I've been long enough on the internet that I don't like the way the internet is so completely walled garden siloed. It used to be open. It used to be where people built their own platforms and tinkered, and lots of people built businesses and tried different things. And lately, it's all like, I mean, I've been listening to this winter's like trail running sponsorship conversations with athletes and people talking about these athletes. And it's always about, yeah, you're a trail runner, but how you're performing on Instagram. I mean, they literally only have one job description, and that is how they're performing Instagram. That can't be a good thing for our industry to have, for our sport, to everything focused just on their own, on this one single platform. So if we can spread this out and break this apart and have people looking at actually different performance metrics and ratios, and then I'm all for it.
Well, I mean, ultimately, it's about selling shoes and selling product. So Instagram and YouTube and all of these places are just methods of marketing it. I don't think we need to go down whether they're based in Silicon Valley or where. I mean, I would liken OnlyFans to maybe more like a Patreon, and I have no idea where they're based, but probably Silicon Valley, because that is a tech hub. But I'll not hold that against them. Troy, what's your first minute on this one?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's kind of level sets on what, you were just saying, and kind of where Mathias was coming from is like, at the end of the day, we may not appreciate where all of OnlyFans revenue comes, the vast majority of their revenue comes from, but like, they're basically a platform for the creator economy. And that's like, what I see is them trying to navigate their brand into somewhat different positioning. It's interesting. I'm interested to see how this goes. I'm interested to see what this looks like a month from now or 2 months from now, when we can really see how they're activating within athletics. I know they have a couple other athletes that they partner with, and I'm wondering, they do have a lot of user data. They know a lot about like how people engage with content. I guess they have a lot of money. I did some preliminary research, and like they profited twice as much as Decker Brands profited last year. I'm talking profits. I'm not talking revenue. I'm talking about pure money going into a bank account that can be deployed. $700 million.
They don't have big operating costs.
They don't, exactly. They don't. So they have like $700 million from last year on 1.3 billion in revenue, right? So they basically cost them 50% of what they earn. They earn more than 50% of what they spend. And like, to me, it's like they have money to play with, so they can if they want to do this brand repositioning, they can kind of put it around a little bit, right? They can get a lot of athletes on board. They can see what works. I'm interested to see how long they're going to stay the route. And I think that's the part that the community, I think that's where you'll see a lot of kickback from the community, is like, are they here to stay and really be a part of the, like, supporting athletes and being a part of the culture in trail running? Or are they just here to see if they can turn around their brand? And like, if it doesn't work in a year, like, we'll see a bunch of sad emoji faces back on Instagram for all these athletes, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I may have done more research into this than you guys, just from what I'm hearing. But let me drop some info, and then we can stir the pot. So I think I want to start by actually giving you my own position on OnlyFans, because it's a platform which has always been linked, or its main use is explicit content behind a paywall. I mean, not call a spade a spade. So for me, I feel obliged just to say that I think if for someone in a relationship, a marriage, a partnership, whatever, to actually subscribe to anything on OnlyFans is like cyber cheating. I don't know what it is. It's morally, it's a step too far than what I would ever go. So I've never had an account there. Obviously, I'm like 14 years married or something. May have got that year wrong, but I mean, it's all right. It's all right. Not the way the fact. So I've never gone there, but I did set up an account today so I could see what was on Sabrina's account. I wanted to basically see, what are we talking about here? Is this explicit content? What are the, just get a feel for it. And then I did a bit of digging in to see what other people on socials are using the OF Athlete hashtag. So I was able to find some other athletes, some mountain bikers, obviously the Olympic gold medalist in the bobsleigh, female Lisa Buckwitz is her name. She's an OnlyFans athlete as well. She does have explicit content. Didn't subscribe, but it's $25 a month. But one thing that I did notice from a boxer, MMA fighter, Sabrina Stanley, and two mountain bikers as well, a mix of gender here. They're free subscriptions, so they're not charging to subscribe and view the content. But basically, when you subscribe and view the content, it's like a combination of Twitter and Facebook from 10 years ago. Like, it looks old. It looks like they haven't put any development into the UI. But the takeaway here is, look, it's just like a behind the scenes type of content. And it made me think, look, are OnlyFans here trying to shed off their explicit content rap and be what Patreon is for creators, for athletes? And in that sense, I think I like it. But I don't know if they're ever going to be able to shake off the explicit content. Although, Sabrina Stanley also lent into that for a little bit of buzz. Mathias, what do you think?
This is what I've been hearing too. I did not create an account, but I heard somebody who created an account and was disappointed that when they followed Sabrina Stanley's unique content, that there wasn't anything there that gave a good indication of what kind of content is going to be coming. And that feels like, a marketing launch fail, right? I mean, if you make a big deal, tease it weeks before the announcement that you're going to show a new sponsor. I mean, this was pre-announced. People have been, as we've mentioned before, have been to sleuth and try to figure out where she's going to be going. And then the launch is, okay, I'm here now. And there's only like one video out that doesn't really give a clear indication of what behind the scenes content is. That feels really disappointing, right? I mean, you'd think that if you are trying to rebrand, if you are trying to say, hey, we have unique creator content that you only get on our platform, and this is the kind of content that we're trying to build here, then you would try to give a glimpse of what that looks like. And I don't think in Sabrina's case, after all this buzz, we've seen that. And I think that is going to turn people off before they even got started.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Troy, what do you think?
I mean, just from a platform standpoint, like regardless, like I said, like explicit content or not, like the one thing that you don't get in the metaverse is you don't own your relationship with your fans. And I think this is something I learned from being on Substack and writing a newsletter there is when you earn the trust of individuals that want to come to your content, you actually get to have a one-on-one, you can build a one-on-one relationship with them, and you actually own that first person data, right? Like you're earning the ability to communicate directly to them. And, I think going back to kind of one of Mathias's first points, which was at this point, it's like, how are you doing on Instagram, right? So it's really about like athletes. It's like, what kind of community are you building? And I think if this is played correctly, you can create a bit of a moat around yourself, and you can get your whatever you want to call 1,000 true fans or plus, like into one place where you can really push your messaging, push your content, engage with them, and move them in a certain direction based on your brand presence that you just don't get on Meta unless you're playing the advertising game, unless you're boosting, unless you're like playing their game. Like, you don't actually have control over your relationships on Meta. And so I think that's where this platform could be of service to athletes, if they could figure out if like this doesn't just blow back in their face.
You're saying a lot of stuff, but I don't actually know what your point is. I mean, how do you own anything more on a Substack subscription or a Instagram subscription or Patreon than this?
Email.
I don't know that.
Like, I literally have emails for all the people that subscribe. So now I have a database of how I can contact these people directly, and I can ask them directly, have direct communication with them one-on-one, as opposed to hoping an algorithm puts my content in front of them.
Communicate one-on-one via email? Is that not like old way of thinking?
I think from a marketing standpoint, email is definitely not dead, and it will never die, because your other options are algorithmic based. So you're just kind of like spraying and praying that people get to see your content.
But they're not algorithmically based, because if somebody subscribes to my Instagram, I have one-to-one DM chat with them. I can see their email address. So I don't know how it differs. They're just meeting me at the platform that they use.
Yeah, well, no. I don't disagree with you there, and I'm not familiar with the way that Instagram has rolled out the subscription base for them. But that's what I see when we talk about platforms like Patreon, when we talk about platforms like Substack and now OnlyFans, is like, it's a way for creators to monetize their content and have that one-on-one relationship with their community that I guess exists in Meta, but I'm not familiar with it because I don't actually use that channel. And that's something that, I mean, yeah, it's hard to know all the things that Meta does, because they do all the things for everyone. So they're all
the same. I mean, it's all the same. It's just different things doing the same thing. And I kind of hate this chat that we've seen recently that Substack is some higher presence, and it should be, people should be writing on Substack. I enjoy consuming content on Substack, but nobody should feel like they're in an ivory tower because they're on Substack and not on Instagram, because it just looks like a social wall, and the content is video, audio, and words, the same as it is for everywhere else. And you don't know the people that own it. You just think you know the people that own the other ones. So, I mean, the whole Substack thing to me is like, yeah, it's just another platform.
No, I agree, except for the way they actually serve your audience the content. And it's based on how the algorithm works. And like, I don't want to get into the algorithm because it's like a freaking black box. But like, Substack is specifically developed. If you subscribe, they feed you the content. If you follow, we all follow each other on Instagram. Like, I get a portion of all of the content fed into my feed that you guys put out. So it's that's kind of the difference, right? And that's what I mean by like really owning more of that relationship. And I agree with you. I mean, that's just a flip of a switch. Like, any of these platforms can decide how they want to change that, right? But at this point in the game, if you're trying to like change the way you engage with your audience, you kind of have to move to a different platform or engage through like the subscription model that Instagram has set up, right?
Yeah, look, we could bang on about this all day, but I'll close it out and we'll move further on to this OnlyFans subject, just in saying, do you remember whenever Strava changed the feed preference to latest activity to some sort of algorithm that nobody wanted? Well, that's still the default setting. So, I mean, it's as you said, Troy, it's a flip of the switch for whoever is making these decisions. So, look, back to Sabrina Stanley.
Yeah.
From digging into it, the bobsleigh athlete, I said 25 is $24 a month. She had a fixed fee sign-in bonus with OnlyFans. I'm calling it sign-in bonus. It was basically a one-off, sign-in type of bonus. And then paid bonuses based on the number of subscribers. So that's potentially also why the subscriptions are free, because payments coming in via that other route. Sabrina Stanley only has 20,000 followers on Instagram. Where are these thousands of people coming from to make her some money and to make OnlyFans some money. I mean, she's not going to convert 10% of those people across to OnlyFans. So, Matthias, what do you think about this conversion, and where's the money going to come from?
I mean, I really don't know. I mean, if Troy is right that OnlyFans is swimming in money and it is sort of trying to build up a new face of their business with these athletes in different sports and sort of trying to portray a new sporty creator content community. I mean, maybe something can grow there. Maybe they see OnlyFans sees this really sort of seed money, startup costs into something new for them. I can see that, right? But I have no idea if Sabrina Stanley, and I never followed her closely beforehand, so I don't know if she is a big enough draw to make that happen. I mean, I feel like what I remember from her voice before, she's always enjoyed being a little bit edgy, a little bit different. And so perhaps she was excited by this opportunity of trying something new and not just announcing another Hoka contract, right? I mean, and for that, we should celebrate her. I mean, I like when athletes try new things and not just like, here, checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. How vanilla, how bland, how obvious can this sort of industry be, right? I like that she says, let's go for it. Let's try something new. And I don't know, maybe that opens doors. Who knows?
Do you think that she would rather be signing with OnlyFans or Hoka?
I don't know. I mean, I think if she would have signed with Hoka, the news cycle certainly would have been a lot shorter.
Don't you think the athlete wants to be athlete first? This is a move away from being athlete first, I think.
I agree. But I also see a lot of athletes very much looking at sort of playing out a second career once their running career is over, right? They're sort of laying out the foundations. And I don't begrudge any of these athletes to think about that, right? I mean, they're one injury away from having nothing. And so I don't mind if they're diversifying. In business, you're supposed to, right? So why not?
I mean, Troy, we'll come to you here, but what do you think this says about the athlete sponsorships and the money in trail and ultra running? I mean, is OnlyFans coming in to take advantage of a gap?
I mean, we've been waiting for that, right? I mean, if it is true what we've sort of, NDA muzzled of hearing through the grapevine that these current sponsor brands are playing insane hardball with these athletes, then of course the market's ripe for the picking. If somebody non-endemic, is that the word, comes in with a little bit of money, they can literally own the sport in a sense, right? They just have to one up, and if the status quo is so little, so minimal, then let's go for it. Because it then also hopefully has the chance of raising the profile for every other, right? And every other contract negotiating going forward.
Right, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, based on the numbers, if OnlyFans wanted to take over trail running, ultra running, they could push Hoka right out of the title sponsorship of just about anything and everything they do, because they have more money. They have, from a revenue standpoint, they have way more money to deploy if they want to. It's not really core to their business yet, like it is to Hoka. So Hoka has like a real reason to be, engaging in the title sponsor and all these different events. Besides that, I think, when we're talking about like the non-endemic sponsors coming in, to Mathias's point of like raising it up for all athletes, I think something that's super important to discuss is that Sabrina uses an agency. She's a surveyor sport management athlete, right? You've looked at some of the contracts that have come in with other athletes this year. Tara Dower, Riley Brady, they just signed a contract. Both of those athletes using an agent. Many other athletes that all announced new sponsorships this year, all using an agent. To me, that's the first sign of something that's maturing within the sport. And like, an agent is the hardest part about advocating for yourself, is having someone tell your brand what you're worth and then stand behind that. And it's really hard as the athlete to play both sides of that equation. And there's a reason why it exists. There's a reason why I mean, the NBA is a good example. Like, they all have agents. Why? Because those guys can go focus on, and girls can go focus on playing the game, and they can have someone else in the corner getting them as much money as they're possibly worth. And that's why, to me, I feel like, to your point, Aaron, about the structure of the deal, I'm interested. It's hard because, like, were there a lot of opportunities for Sabrina from other shoe companies, or was this opportunity so intriguing and OnlyFans' ability to want to play ball, to be in the market, to open up this market for them, so hot, for lack of a better word, that she's just like, let's do this because this allows me to work on building my brand for the future. This allows me to get in with a new player in the sport. This allows me to, I don't know, maybe rake in a bunch of money in a signing bonus and figure out the rest later. That she wasn't going to see. I mean, I don't know if she turned down, on like speculation, I don't know if she turned down an opportunity to work with Adidas further, or if that contract was up and she needed to find a new opportunity. But like, yeah, and I think, Aaron, you may have some juice there, but like, I mean, Adidas is known for paying their athletes relatively well. So it's like, it's interesting to me because if I try to like take what little information I have that's behind the NDA wall, it seems to me like this would have been a very lucrative deal for her, at least in trail running standards. So
I believe it was the latter. The contract was not renewed.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And what do we think about the stigma that's attached to OnlyFans, and with the sport? How do you think this is sitting with the sport? Like right now, it's a little bit of drama, a little bit of buzz. We're talking about it. There's been hype over the weeks. As part of this whole contract season thing, that we're just like looking for stuff to chat about while races are just getting going. But are we going to be able to shake the OnlyFans stigma? Like, thinking about the barrier that I had to just for creating an account for the point of journalism. So, Mathias, what do you think?
I think if OnlyFans would sponsor an entire race series, it would be a lot harder, because then you as an individual athlete or just runner, right, wanting to run this race, you have to sort of figure out how you engage and, with that brand. But since it's just supporting an individual athlete, supporting them, I don't know really if it changes a lot, unless, I don't know. I think it doesn't change a lot.
Think about, whenever I was thinking about the kind of the pros and the cons of regarding the stigma and how it might affect other deals, because other sponsors, athletes don't just have one sponsor normally. It usually takes at least 3-4 to even make a living in this sport. Avery Collins, her partner, he has always struggled to get sponsorship deals, and some of it has been because of his connection to openly being a cannabis user and psychedelic drugs as well. I mean, I'm all for people doing whatever the hell they want, as long as they do it with the right, moral compass. So I'm not judging anybody for that. But I know that he struggled to get shoe deals with some brands because of that. Troy, maybe you're a good person to kick us off on this question.
I mean, is the question, what is actually, just can you reframe the question for me?
Stigma and
yes.
how that will affect other potential brand partners going forward. Like, with this whole off, Sabrina Stanley signing with OnlyFans, another trail runner coming through going, oh, that's interesting. Maybe I could go that route too. But then there's the Chorus, the Garmin, the Precision Hydration, the TORQ Nutrition. Like, do they want to be associated with an OnlyFans athlete?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I apologize. I used to smoke a lot of cannabis, so my short-term memory is garbage, similar to the issues that when you started to mention Avery and cannabis, I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? No, so
you're an athlete, you should vape.
Yeah. It's interesting. And I thought about this, and when I was thinking about how, if it was me going to trying to structure the deal with OnlyFans, I would have looked at the opportunity cost, and I would have said, there's a possibility that because of my relationship with you as a brand partner, as my quote unquote, whatever title brands partner, that I am going to lose the opportunity for this kind of revenue. And I'm wondering if that, I mean, Surveyor, sports management had to have brought that to the table with OnlyFans to let them know, like, hey, we are breaking a mold here in a very culture driven sport. Like, this could go one of two ways. for our client, right? This could go one or two ways for the athlete. This could be very, very good for you and very good for them, or this could end up being like relatively good for you and not very good for them based on, whatever, like, is there a black mark, right? Does she get blacklisted now with the other brands and can't kind of like, to your point, pull together like a reasonable living salary based on not being able to get other brand partners? I'm interested to see how it plays out. And that's kind of what I mentioned is like, how long is OnlyFans going to be a part of the sport? How long are they going to support athletes? And, I think we'll see. And I think this is interesting. It's an interesting test case because, Sabrina is an amazing athlete, but she is not quite the very tip of the spear, right? This is coming in at like I feel like a good tier of athlete where like she still has performances in her that I think are going to be good for her and good for her sponsors, but we'll see. I mean, honestly, like this is the one thing that I'm sitting back with a bowl of popcorn and wanting to see what happens, right? When I first saw it, I was like, I wonder how the rest of the community is going to react to this. And I thought about other brands and I was like, either people are really going to care or they're not. I mean, I'll bring this up. Ketone IQ, right? I'm not a fan. I'm not a proponent of ketones. They did a commercial on Instagram with a known porn star. And it was a very risque commercial as far as, and their audience was obviously like middle-aged men, right? They're like trying to target men with this commercial. And I thought to myself, like, how does this affect the rest? Ultimately, I was like, is this really going to make waves across the community? Is the community going to be about this? Is there going to be a bunch of backlash? Like, and I started reading through the comments and it was like, no one cared. And then I never heard anything about it in the trail running side of things where people were like in a big uproar about the way the content, the type of content and how the content was produced for this specific commercial that was on Meta for Ketone IQ. And so I'm wondering if this is one of those things where like, in the beginning, it's going to have like a visceral reaction, and then everyone's just going to be like, "Oh no, there you go. There's there's Sabrina Stanley. She's an OnlyFans athlete." I don't know. Like, I feel like this is going to be one of those things that's really hot for a month, and then it'll die down, and we'll see who else is back behind her. I think Speed Labs. I've never heard of them. Speed Labs Energy is the other company that's on her Instagram page right now. I have no idea what they do, but I've never heard of them either.
So. Yeah, I think one of the interesting parts of this conversation, I think maybe it was a point that Mathias made, was about OnlyFans coming in with a larger sponsorship in the sport. Yeah. I think if they sponsor 1, 2, 3, a handful of athletes that aren't top tier, like you were very nice about Sabrina, but I think I see Sabrina, a good athlete, a great athlete, probably still close to the top of the tier 100-mile distance nationally, but internationally I think where she's competing at UTMB, she's having results that I think are suitable for her ability. So I think the whole stigma and the feeling around OnlyFans is not going to change. It's just going to be forgotten about, and we'll not even think about Sabrina again unless OnlyFans come in and did something more sport-wide to change the perception of what this is. And you see these athletes that are in this race series, you can follow their behind the scenes here. This is where their content is behind the scenes. And I could see that being interest. But then how do you get over the position of, your baby brother, your baby sister is at the race and like, hey, what's OnlyFans? And whenever I logged in and I was on Sabrina's page, on the very right-hand side of the screen, where normally they'll try and serve you an ad on various social walls, they're showing me 3 other OnlyFans creators that I could subscribe to, and all 3 of them are scantily clad and probably have explicit content. So yeah, time will tell. Mathias, closing word?
I mean, we've seen, I don't remember what the sponsor was, but that marathon runner ran a New York Marathon and had an e-bike film guy next to him for the entire way, and he got totally creamed in the community for what he's doing and his actions. And so I think
the sponsor too.
And the sponsor too, exactly. I think if she keeps her content by herself, right? If she is not like working at the start line of UTMB for her unique OnlyFans subscribers, then I think this will be perfectly fine, right? I mean, nobody is really going to look at it if it stays on that personal level. But I'm more interested in what it can do being a non-endemic sponsor for the rest of the sport. I think that's sort of the more interesting storyline to follow here.
Yeah, totally true. All right, moving on. And I'll be coming to you first, Mathias, because, I mean, the man is cold as ice. Killian, the GOAT, the greatest of all time, the best who has ever done it. A post was created for ITRA, and the PTRA shared it or promoted it as well for International Women's Day. What a lovely thing. And Killian was providing advice on how male trail runners can support gender equality in the sport. And like this, the points are good. Like, just to make a cut to highlight some of them, it's a male-dominated sport with biases and exclusions. There's harmful language that reinforces the sexism and homophobia and things like this. And then training methodologies are generally tested using male athletes as well. Of course, these things are all changing, but that's the small end of the scale. And it's also like there's the boys' club culture in almost any sport. And I mean, Killian putting his word out there, 1.7 million followers. What did Mathias say? On a day that is meant for celebrating women, and they choose to highlight a man and his voice. So are men meant to be silent on this, or can we not support the women that we respect and love and run and train with? Mathias, please explain.
You've got an Instagram feed that scrolls down. It says PTRA and ITRA, and it says International Women's Day, and the picture is Killian. I'm sorry. The image just doesn't look great. You see, mansplaining to us how this thing is supposed to work. It's like, you post it 364 other days. Don't post it on the day when we're supposed to be celebrating women.
But it's just because that post went out doesn't mean that there aren't posts from women. Is it not better, like, if, let's say Killian has a similar demographic following him as the sport. Let's say it's even better. Let's say 60% of his followers are men. 60% of 1.7 million people potentially read that, clicked into it, and took away something positive and something to work on, something to be, just even to have in your mind, can make you like think about it in a nicer way. Is that not a good thing?
I mean, yeah, sure, it's a good thing. I don't mind that it happened, but on that particular day, why don't we hear from a woman? Why don't we see a woman? Why do we have to see a man?
But we do.
We do see a woman?
Yeah.
Not from ITRA. We saw Killian.
One of the pictures was of Emily.
That's the point that I'm making. I mean, you can tell me that I am an idiot for it, and I'm fine with that. But I feel like what came through my feed was Killian mansplaining to us International Women's Day.
All right. Troy, help a brother.
I mean, well, I think the message is fine by me. Like, I didn't take offense to seeing the goat on the picture. I will say the image they decided to use for Emily is like, I know it's Emily because I mean it's very hard to tell who it is that's running in the post, for one. As far as the content and actually that is on the blog post, I mean, to me, I feel like this is a really good ChatGPT prompt that spit out some decent content for them to put on their blog. And I'm not trying to be like that. I'm just saying, like, the quote on the Instagram page is definitely from Killian. That quote isn't in the blog post, and it's just like a bunch of bullet points on like how you're supposed to act. And it's like, to me, I'm like, okay, I get it, but I would have wanted a little bit more depth. You know, I think the first couple paragraphs that you, Aaron, kind of highlighted are probably the best part of it. I think that actually comes a little bit more from Killian's voice, and then the rest of it is just like some bullet points and calls to action that I think are strong and it's needed. I just, part of me is kind of like, did this just feel like a really nice hole in their content pillar so they could make sure they're highlighting the right keywords on their website? That's the marketer in me looking at the content.
I mean, like, as a marketer, do you not think that if you have the biggest influencer in the sport giving an opinion on a particular day about that particular thing, that is great for reach, great for spreading the message?
Oh, no, listen, the marketer in me thinks it was a great campaign. Like, bring Killian in, get his 6 million followers on there, get people pushing toward the content. I just think the content could have been better, in my opinion. I mean, that's just like me saying, and it was a good, like, it's me being a little overly critical. Like, this is kind of the marketing 101. Like, get someone that's got reach, get them to give their viewpoint, make sure it aligns with the message, and then push people towards your content. Like, it wasn't a terrible thing. I was just like looking at it going like, oh yeah, this, like, what I would have liked to see from the content itself would be more quotes from females helping to say yes, right? Like I agree with, like add substance, excuse me, from a female voice to these points that are being brought up that men should be thinking about when we're talking about bringing inclusivity into the sport. So like and this is like, I mean, dude, it's easy to armchair quarterback stuff like this. Like, I'm not gonna not say that, but I mean, I saw this, I looked it up, I checked it out. I was like, oh, this is good. Like, several thousand, I mean, the reach on this post has got to be 7 figures, like, as far as the number of people that saw it. So like, it's great for the sport. So.
Yeah. Well, I think like one of the highlighted comments was from an English ultra runner, Sophie. I forget her surname. It's not obviously in her Instagram name, but she does a lot of work in this kind of space in the UK. And her comment was, "We need male allies to support us in ensuring our sport is open for all." And I thought that was kind of nice as well. Like, I'm all for it. I think it was great. It had good reach, and it got the message out to more people than if Emily had posted it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And to your point, that comment called out as a quote in the blog would have been exceptional, right? And of course, you don't get that until you post it, right? That content comes secondary. But yeah, and that's the kind of thing that, like, if I'm on the marketing management side, like, I'm going to be pulling those quotes out of the post, and I'm updating this content in order to make it more relevant based on the information that you're getting back out of it.
So I came after you hard, Iceman. So I'll let you have the last word.
I asked my wife about it. She is a cold-blooded feminist, and she's like, yeah, I want to see women. I don't want to see men. Men have always had the microphone, no matter how big their reach is. And that, for me, is what this is all about. We are here 3 men, and we can talk about it, and we can rationalize that Killian has the biggest reach, and therefore it's important to use him for this campaign and stuff. But the reality is, the reason why we're using Killian is because every time we use a man, we are not giving a woman an opportunity to grow to that status and to rise to that. And so therefore, I think the basic idea of this message, using him to make that point, is great. But this was International Women's Day. This was about celebrating and lifting up women. And therefore, I felt like it was timed poorly.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. Right, moving on, guys. Trailcon on Running. Wow, did I see this coming? Maybe. I mean, they were definitely searching for something like this. What do we think of this? And Troy, will come to you first.
I mean, what I see is, I know On's releasing a super shoe. They've been working on this shoe for freaking forever. And, when you look at a Broken Arrow, it's a Solomon sponsored event. When you look at Western States, it's a Hoka sponsored event. And now you have this like really nice 2-day thing the week before, where everyone's there. And now it's On's opportunity to kind of take a little bit of the limelight in between, that's sandwiched in between two of what would be considered, like, it's the premier, call it the premier back-to-back bookend weekend in North American trail running. And so, Trailcon, I listened to the podcast with oh my gosh, Second Nature with Dylan.
Aaron Lutzy.
Thank you. With Aaron Lutzy. My brain's not working. With Aaron Lutzy and Dylan. And they talked about this. And Dylan specifically said, like, they lost money on the first year, and one of their sponsors put up all of the money for like the taste of Trailcon. And now, it's a conference. These things cost a lot of money to put on, and you need sponsor dollars to do it. I think what I'm interested in is, this is a situation where Trailcon needs to do really well in this real, like, what would be considered the real year, outside of the incubation, in order to make sure that there are other sponsors that want to come in and keep it rolling. And I think this will be one of those, like this is a good test to see, can this grow legs and continue to shine? And then also this could become the formula, is like every time there's a shoe brand that wants to release a shoe, now they can get on with Trailcon and activate in between Broken Arrow and Western States. So
I think having a shoe sponsor for Trailcon is a nice to have, but not a must have. Like if you look at Doug's other conference businesses, the run show in Boston, the national run show in the UK, maybe I'll speak to that. Like that is a business. Companies are paying to have a stall and to be there and sell product, and they're bringing in the athletes who are obligated to have so many sponsor days to do talks and just be there to help sell product. So there are these important conversations that happen at various stages around the arena. But Trailcon is a business, and that's how I would imagine it was pitched to Debo as here. And this guy has form of being able to do this very successfully. So I think On is coming in as a sponsor, and that's a great thing for this year, next year, whenever. But ultimately, I think we're going to see a expo here where people are basically setting up and trying to sell product. And maybe I think they've got a little bit of ambitions on the TRE space, where shoe products, new trail products could be showcased ahead of launch. Mathias, what do you think of these kind of musings?
I mean, I've been following this fairly closely now since the first announcement, because it's such a brilliant opportunity of bringing Broken Arrow and Western States together. Western States begins in Olympic Valley but doesn't end there. So it is always sort of a tricky situation where you've got a valley that sees some activity but is overall pretty dead outside of the races. And for them to sort of make this ambitious move and saying, okay, we're bringing these two events together, these two races together, people are are encouraged to stay longer in the area, I think is a smart business play. Absolutely. And I think I wish them luck in sort of establishing this. Clearly their vision, as Doug has said multiple times, is they are ambitious and they want to replicate what Germany is doing, right? Where they're going to have a week-long focus on trail. And at some point in time, they're going to have to come to terms with the fact that Salomon is Broken Arrow and Hoka is Western States and Trailcon is its own thing and Western States is a non-profit. And so at some point, there's going to be some business forces that are going to create some tension here. But at this point, as they're seeding this idea and sort of planting it out to see what this can look like, I think all of this makes perfect sense and is good for the sport.
Yeah, but it also feels like On as a company, like whenever this news broke, I had to go through and search to see what I could find out about who are the On athletes, because I knew a handful of them. But actually, there's quite a lot of good athletes with On, but it still feels like there's a gap in what they do in the trail space. Like it doesn't feel like they have a voice. It doesn't feel like they have something that they're saying in trail and ultra running. They sponsor the Cirque series, like that's a national or a North American thing. We would never really hear about that in Europe, only for the odd mention. So like, what else do On have to do to be taken seriously? I guess is what I'm saying. Troy,
you mean in trail specifically?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I hear they're moving away from having a trail shoe with holes in it. I think that's probably a smart move to get taken seriously. Like, I know that's like kind of a little below the belt there with their product because they do on clouds. But like, I was never keen on their footwear because I was like, dude, there's no way I'm putting a pair of shoes on that has like a bunch of holes down the side of it. Like in the outsole. I think
there already is a shoe that has the holes filled in.
Right, I know. I'm saying they've moved toward that, like in trail. So I'm like, they're moving in the right direction. I guess that's like stage one is get rid of the holes in the sides of the shoe if you're going to make trail running shoes. That's kind of, and I mean, I like David Kilgore. I think he's really cool. I think what he does, like his presence as an athlete manager like in their organization, but also as an athlete. Like, you know, I love what they do with Zach Friendly, a friend of mine and friend of the Midpacker pod, adaptive athlete. And they kind of like, dude, they literally gave this guy like a legit pro contract, and says, hey, we want to empower you to be the best adaptive athlete you can be on the trails, right? And I think that's a strong move toward building in that culture and like making an inclusive sport, right? And then, you know, like I don't really know any of the other runners, to be honest with you.
Let me just interject at this point. Let me call out some of the names. Maybe it's a bit more food for thought. So Baptiste, who was third at UTMB, or was he second at UTMB last summer? He ran in Nike, but he's moved across to On. I believe it was a little while ago, but the announcement actually just came out a few weeks ago. He's an interesting guy. I kind of like his vibe. And then Carl Sabe just ran the FKT on the length of New Zealand, On Athlete. Also going to be running UTMB this year, which I'm excited about. Claudia Tremps, third at UTMB last year. Was she second at Transgrancanaria last week? Adrian McDonald, second at Dan Jones at Tarawera last month. Former Leadville winner, and now has golden ticket for States. Xavier Thevenard, the multiple UTMB winner. In fact, the only athlete to have won all of the UTMB races. The Prince of Mont Blanc.
Yeah, the little
And
prince.
then maybe the last one on the list is Alyssa Clark, a Hurt 100 winner and course record holder, former guest on Trail Talk. So whenever that's like a third of the athlete roster. And I'm looking at that going, oh yeah, you have some great athletes, but nothing about it says team to me. Like, that feels like there's something missing.
But maybe there's not anything missing. Maybe that's their strategy. I mean, they are a Swiss brand, and the Swiss are a little bit more subdued and a little bit more individualistic in their approach. Maybe their approach is we're finding some athletes that do cool stuff. They help us with some product feedback and we empower them to do things, but that's really all we care about. Maybe they're not interested in building that raw of the Terex team and the splashiness of the Hoka ads, you know, fly human fly. Maybe I mean, the Swiss brands are all very cool. They're very chill. And so I think there could be an answer.
Supposedly their Boulder running squad is like, their road running squad is like legit assassins. Like, they have a little team, they've got it set up, they're running a team out of Boulder. I know Seth Rulin was talking about it on Debo's podcast. So, you know, it's not like they haven't done it before. But yeah, I mean, to me, like, I think you're right, Aaron and Mathias. I mean, the cohesiveness doesn't feel like it really exists there. You know, they're kind of a little bit I don't want to say all over the place, but they, you know,
there's a brick missing somewhere. I just think.
No, 100%. And maybe they're trying to close that. Maybe they're trying to fill in the gap there with what
maybe
they're
that's
doing.
what Trailcon will be, and this new shoe, and, you know, fast forward to the summer and we'll be like, all right, honor here now. Who knows?
Well, back to like the Trailcon thing, what I was thinking is, like, you were talking about against TR, you know, kind of butting up against TRE, but like at TRE, you get to get a glimpse of what's coming, right? And now and into the summer, that's when all the product launches. So now Trailcon is in a perfect position to actually like be a place where you can go and be the first people to get your hands on the new product that everyone's been raving about at TRE. So I'm interested, like, to your point, Aaron, I do think that you have to, I mean, I've done plenty of trade shows in whatever my former life, and like, it's all about being able to sell your service and your product. Like, that's why you don't go to the conference. I mean, the keynote speaking and all that stuff is kind of a nice to have part of it, in my opinion. If you're a business, you're showing up to make connections, to be on the floor.
All hands on deck to sell shit.
Set up your booth, sell your service, put your brand out there, like really like show up and activate, right? It's all about the activation. And so I'm interested to see, you know, how they pivot, how they're going to pivot from the, like, we're just getting the community together to talk about trail running to like an actual conference. Because a conference to me is, there's the floor that everyone sets up and activates on, and then there's the couple side rooms where you're going to watch like the one or two things that you're really interested in your specific market, right, in your industry. So
I think one of the differences that we need to bring up is that TRE is a trade show just for the businesses, so there is no public component to it. There's a lot of hype because everybody sort of talks about what they see, but the public's not actually invited. And I think Trailcon is going to be open to the public. If it relies on the public to show up, then it's going to be an interesting challenge, because I still don't know how many people are actually going to be in Olympic Valley during that period. And it might really require Doug Emsley's deep pockets to build this over the next 5 to 10 years. I don't know if only 2 years.
2 days. First day is business to business, and the second day is more expo.
Yeah, but I mean, I think in order for businesses and sponsors, because it's not going to be a buying event, right? It's the for business portion is only going to be talks. At TRE, the showroom floor is never open to the public. Like, you see products that are not yet out, and you need a special badge to get in. But I think the trade show that they're envisioning for Trailcon is going to be open to the public. And so I think that's the difference. A brand's going to get enough traffic at a booth in order to justify the activation, right?
Yeah, you need that a couple thousand, you're going to want 2, 3, 4,000 people to show up for the brands to feel like they're getting the exposure that they need in order to pony up the capital to do an activation at the event, right? Yeah.
I think they get a lot, they're going to get a lot of eyes on it online. I think that's where the majority of the eyes are going to be. So anyway, we'll move on from that one. Next on the docket, Transgrancanaria was it last week? In around last week, something like that. 5,300 runners. I mean, big event on a little island. And let me give you some other numbers just so we can stir the pot around. Hong Kong 100, 5,000. UTMB finale, 10,000. We know from previous chats, Tarawera and Ultra Trail Australia are above 4,000. Ultra Trail Mount Fuji, or whatever it's called, Mount Fuji 100, is it now called?
Yeah, that's correct.
3,500. And then the Grand Raid, Diagonal de Fou, just over 7,000. 5,300 runners at Transgrancanaria across multiple distances, kicking off, I think, like the European side of the World Trail Majors. Mathias, what do you think of those numbers and thoughts on the event, really?
I can take this many different angles. I love that there are these island races that are attracting so many runners. I love how much this is a huge boon for the local economy. I think it's fantastic. I think you mentioned total runners, right? We just had the first Chinese race, Warhorse Ultra Trail edition, first year edition, also had over 4,000 runners in China, right? An almost exclusive Chinese podium on all the distances. And so I think there is, number one, there are lots of races now out there that really, as an event, multiple distances, get several thousand runners. And for us as Americans, this is still a number that is pretty unfathomable, right? I mean,
blows my mind.
I mean, Broken Arrow has over 3,000, but that's probably the biggest in the US, right? I don't know how many Javelina has, but overall, I think these numbers are bonkers, and it just shows that there are pockets in a world where we don't really have a big attention to. I mean, Transcanaria is always a big focus, but it's still not a region we really think of as for trail running, and there are a massive number of runners. Our sport, amazing.
Yeah, it is. And Gran Canaria, the title sponsor of the World Trail Majors, so tourism is a massive thing for all of these islands. Troy, come to you now.
Well, I mean, to Mathias, well, like, you guys are spitting out these numbers, and I'm just like, dude, I think there was like 300 people at the last race. You know what I mean? Like, the last race I did here in America, there was like 300 people at the start line, right? Maybe, and of course, across a couple distances. So, anyway, I mean, it shows the growth of the sport. Like, it's kind of cool. I know that the TGC had some decent prize money. I think we're going to get to the elephant in the room here, but like with this growth, there's a lot of responsibility that's going to have to come down the line here if we want to like be able to manage what's happening across this international field. And to me, it's not a if, it's when. It's just a matter of time before there's some pretty big controversy that comes out of having this number of people racing and not having like really good guide rails in place. So,
I mean, we can't talk around this subject anymore. You're just chomping at the bit. So this race, Transgrancanaria, it's a North Face sponsored event, World Trail Majors event, 5,300 runners there, backed by the tourist board. I mean, this is a big event. £15,000 or euro prize money for best of 2 results in the World Trail Majors. What is it going to take to pay for drug testing? Like, what more does an event need? Over 5,000 runners, a title sponsor, backed by the tourist board, a shit ton of runners there. Like, what more does an event need to be able to afford drug testing?
It was shocking to me to find out that they didn't have like in competition testing for this event. And like, you could go down the rabbit hole of like, I mean, the fact that we don't have out of competition testing means that like, dude, let's just get real. Like, if you want to dope in our sport, you can, and you're going to be able to get away with it because they don't have whereabouts testing. And so like, you can do a lot of things to enhance your performance that will never show up on race day. But that being said, the fact that they're not drug testing people when they come across the finish line, at least in the top, whatever you want to call, like top 5, whoever's earning money, like if you earn money and you didn't get tested, like what is going on here? Because it doesn't cost, compared to the amount of people that showed up there and the amount of sponsorship dollars that are getting thrown around, it doesn't cost that. That's a small line item on the bill for TGC. So.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how small of a line item it is. If it would be really insignificant, I think it would happen. I wouldn't discount
It's not insignificant. It's definitely not insignificant.
I do think it is. I mean, the challenge is that I think we don't really have decided at what point, what governing body, what entity should bring the drug testing into the sport, right? Transgrancanaria started off, I don't know 100% the history, but it is sort of a local tourism play. It's bringing runners to an island. I mean, the tourist organization, they're not interested in drug testing because they want to get runners out, right? I mean, they are not interested in that. And they also don't really, who do I call up? I'm a race director. Who do I call up if I want to do drug testing for my little backyard adventure next week, right? So if they're not doing it, then it could come from the sponsor, but maybe, I don't know, maybe they don't see the need or don't want their money to go towards that. I mean, the sponsors clearly have the money. They should see the more global play there. Should it come from the larger governing body? I mean, that's ultimately the organization that would have sort of if you want to be part of the World Trail Majors as an event, then you have to provide drug testing. That would be sort of the umbrella, right? And they could initiate with drug testing in each, with the agencies in each country and basically saying, okay, here are our 10, 15 events. We want you to show up and provide that. That could be a requirement. But I think the World Trail Major organization has never been set up to really have that pull. It was more this loose organization of some race directors who didn't like that they would probably be called up by UTMB asking if they wanted to sell their race. And they're like, okay, we don't want to do that, so let's band together. And I think so far that's been it. But I think it should come from that body, right? It should come from that organization.
Yeah, I think that's a great point actually to bring up. And it's one that I agree with. I think this needs to be like part of the requirements of joining the series. You know, you are mature to this level, and all of the World Trail Majors, because of this 10K prize purse, one of the reasons that podium winner, something, there needs to be some sort of drug testing. And Troy, what do you think of the World Trail Majors as the umbrella for that?
I mean, if Western states can mandate that you have to have drug testing at the golden ticket races, and then like come on, like World Trade Major, like even the largest golden ticket races do not have the kind of numbers that World Trail Majors are attracting. And so like let's do it. Like I think this is also, like, I would add, this is something that the PTRA needs to really kind of, I don't think they need to be the organizational, the governing body, but they really need to be pushing this because they represent the athletes. And I know that the athletes aren't happy with the fact that you have this kind of wild, wild west thing happening across. There's no standardization, like across events. So it's really, I mean, in my opinion, it's really poor form for World Trail Majors. It definitely like makes it feel like double A ball here, to do a baseball analogy. It just doesn't feel like as professional as it should be. So
yeah. Did I hear lawnmower?
Sorry.
68 minutes, half the crop.
We're blaming daylight savings time for that. If we would have met at our original time, we would have missed it. But
point at you, Troy. Right.
But to your point, Troy, to interject very briefly, is it Western States that is demanding drug testing, or is it Hoka? Because I feel like Hoka upped their title sponsorship, and they solidified that all the golden ticket events are Hoka events, and then drug testing was introduced. And I don't know, I feel like the way it was introduced both by UTMB and by Western States, it sounded to me like Hoka was saying, if we are upping our sponsorship, we don't want to put money towards athletes from other teams that are potentially being doped. And so therefore we're requiring that. That's how it looked to me, but I might be completely off base. I have no insight.
You could be very right, Mathias, but like Western States' drug testing policy is really new too, right? So it's like, is it just like that they introduced the policy because they know they needed to? And we could talk about whether we like the policy or not. At the same time, like around the same time is kind of when it all started getting trickled down into the other events as well. So like either way, like, I guess my point is that if those events can do it and they're smaller events, then like you know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of like if you're talking about the price of admission here to do drug testing, it's like, come on, like
the money is there.
The money is there to do it. Like it needs to be done. There's just no, in 2024, 2025, the way the sport is growing, the progression that we're in, the amount of prize money that's getting put up now at races, like if you're going to have prize money, people need to be peeing in cups, man.
I mean, yeah, you could solve this problem really quickly. The PTRA could say, if you're part of the PTRA as a member, then you can't race any races that don't have drug testing.
That's another way of doing it, but are the PTRA going to make rules, or are they just going to make recommendations?
And they could make rules for their own athletes, right? I mean, there is sort of a standard on who you are as an athlete, who you can be as an athlete in order to join the PTRA. And so they could basically say that, right? I'm just trying to come up with sort of creative mechanisms of how the sport can move forward, right? Because just sitting around and hoping that somebody's opening their wallet is clearly not working, right?
Yeah.
Well, the question is, I think what we framed at the start of this is, if not now, like, what's it going to take? What's going to really change with Transgrancanaria in the next 12 months to introduce drug testing? Meanwhile, it's widely documented now that there's no drug testing. So what does that do for people who are targeting World Trail Majors as a title? And I know that this is a case. Speaking with an athlete just a few days ago, and another athlete recommended to them that, if you do the World Trail Majors, there's good prize money in that. And it's also not that competitive. It's not like going to win UTMB. So, as I've said before, it was very easy money for Courtney Dauwalter last year. Very easy. But I think we can draw a line under that one and come back to it. Would love to know what viewers and listeners are thinking. So if you think the time has passed for drug testing, or if you have an idea of how we can get it into the sport, leave us a comment on Spotify or YouTube. Guys, next on the docket and closing topic, Golden Trail World Series. The floor format is back, baby. I'm not happy about it at all. And it's not even a finale. It's just, it's the third round of the 2025 season in Nolia, Italy. It's 26k, 1400 meters of vert. It's the Golfo del Isolata Trail, the flower format, and I'm not happy. Mathias, are you happy?
Sure, why not? Let me be happy.
For a change.
Exactly, right? Let me be like positive, but I don't know. I feel like trail running requires on natural courses, and the biggest, most beautiful courses are never going to turn into a flower format. So if one race series is trying something different and is going to make their races feel a little bit more like cross-country running, and it can showcase the sport, I feel like, I don't know, I've previously talked about this, indoor competitive climbing is not going to change people going to Yosemite and climbing El Cap. Perhaps there are too many people attempting El Cap now because they're learning how to do indoor climbing. But I think if there is one version of our sport that approaches it a little bit different, I'm okay with that. And I am okay with them trying it out and letting athletes come and choosing. I mean, they're not forced to run these races. These races stink. I mean, Francesco Boppi had said that he doesn't like the flower format. Then don't run the race. It's fine, right? But to try something different, to try to get spectators out, I mean, there's a reason for why it's been done. To try, I'm okay with that.
Troy, what's your hot take?
I mean, I could lukewarm, I guess at best. Like I could care less whether they run.
It's feeling cold here.
Yeah, whether they whether they run a straight line, a loop, or a flower, right? It's like if I'm picking the race, I'm like not a fan of like multiple loop races. Like I'm just not. It's like I'm okay with not signing up for that race. I'd rather have like either a point to point or a big loop. It's like it feels way more of a journey. But I think,
have you seen the course?
I did. I looked at the picture of the course, and they kind of run all these loops together so that there's this one line that is like the quote unquote fan zone, right? And so, but I think what you have is an opportunity. Like, gosh, man, if you're trying to create content around this makes it a lot easier, right? If you're trying to like create something that you can televise and you can like create and package something that's a less than a 45-minute to an hour and a half package show that you can put out live, like, and try to like kind of bring trail running into this like something that can get it an audience, that enough viewers on it so that you can start driving revenue streams like traditional sports do through viewership. It's a model that works because they kind of proved it last year, and I think they're trying to experiment. You know, they did the finals this way, right? Am I wrong in saying that? They did the finals this way, and now they're trying to figure out like, can we introduce this into other events, and is there an appetite for it? And I'm interested to see the content that comes out of it. I'm interested to see how they package this up with their with the viewer. They have some sort of televised.
Yeah, so I really want to know how you think the flower format was a success. Just because they did it doesn't mean it was a success.
Well, like if it was a complete failure, they wouldn't do it again. That's for sure, right? Like, how do you quantify success or failure with this format? How do we know if athletes are choosing not to do it because they don't think it's true. or represents the sport well? There's one strike against it. I guess a strike for it is the fact that it's TV friendly and this is something that's said by the people who are producing it, so it's easier to produce. But watching it, a flower format could have a good race competitively, but it's not going to look as epic or wonderful as a fan zone during Zagama or the balcony run in Sears and Al. So I think my point I'm trying to make here is those are the scenes, those are the places, those are the things that we've experienced to make us fall in love with the sport. Sure. So if the floor format and televising this is a priority to gain new viewers and new fans of the sport, are they going to get that from watching something that's like a trail racing version of cross country? I mean, I would, if they have no idea what it's like, then ignorance is bliss in that situation, right? If you're talking about like new people coming into the sport, then like they see it, they're like, oh, this is really cool. Yeah, no, exactly. It's like, this is really cool. I think we sit here as like I mean, just kind of Uber fans. And, you know, like to your point, like, yeah, man, would I rather be in the freaking parade line at Zagama, like, or Sierra's and all? Dude, yes, like that's the vibe, right? That's what we do it all for. If you don't know and you're just you turning on for the first time, and they can actually package something up that like looks really cool and really crisp and like gets you really motivated to like to continue to tune in, like that's what they care. Like on that side of it, from the content side, that's what they care about. But you make a really good point about if the athletes don't show up, then you don't, you know, there's a pull and a push here where like if you don't get the right athletes to do it, you don't get a good polished thing. Like the outcome is not as good. So yeah, I mean,
I think bringing in new young athletes who are contractually obligated to race in this series means that it'll still continue and it'll still be. And I know that my take on this could be, a bit of an old curmudgeon, that this is no longer the Golden Trails, which was the original premise of the series. But I'm not sure. We saw it at a finale, the floor format. Now we're seeing it mid-season. We'll probably see it at the finale as well, so there'll be two. I mean, next year is a third of the series going to be floor format, or are they normalizing this for us? Mathias, what do you think?
I mean, there's lots to be said, right? I think it's important to acknowledge that both in skimo, in mountain biking, a lot of these sports that are going towards trying to create a sport that could be adopted by the Olympics, the athletes don't love the product that is being created. So I think this is an important aspect to consider, and this is an important aspect that the Golden Trails and Solomon are need to be wrestling with, right? There's going to be a breaking point where they're trying to make too much of a TV product that the athletes are going to hate. But if the TV product creates additional prize money, maybe the athletes begrudgingly are going to hate it and anyway going to run it. And maybe that's then what we want. I mean, I would make the argument that while the flower format might not be great for television, I didn't see any races last year. I would argue the current live stream product that we have of 400 mile, 100K, I can't stand. I don't think that anybody who's new to the sport, who casually hears about trail running and goes to YouTube to find some kind of weird shaky drone footage with somebody saying, this might be this person or this person. We don't really know. I don't know if that really creates the product that draws somebody into the sport, right?
It absolutely doesn't. It doesn't, but
right?
But the snippet of the last 500 meters of the marathon distance at Transgrancanaria is the snippet that goes viral that, some guy that runs that doesn't know much about track or trail sees this and goes, what's this? And they race like this at the end of a 50K. Wow, this is amazing. Let me look more into this. It's way down the road. We're just the super fans that watch the live streams because we've been here waiting on it to happen. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think bringing in 100-mile live stream is the right way to look at this. I tend to think more along the lines of where's this going with the Golden Trail? And you look at, for example, Broken Arrow Sky Race, that is, it's a premier event. It's been growing in stature for years. It came around as part of the original sky running boom whenever that made its way outside of Europe. Would that event be created now? Like, would somebody start up this event now? Or would they think about, let's, create some sort of flower event? Or in 5 years' time, maybe, whenever the Golden Trail series might be half floor formats, does Broken Arrow Sky Race get created? Troy, what do you think of that?
It's an interesting take. I mean, I wanted to just say, like, can we just bring back the 2019 Golden Trail World Series content? Like, I'm just like, because to me, that stuff was, I mean, what Solomon TV was, what they were producing back then was like so good. And it highlighted kind of, I guess going back to your point, like highlighted some of like the core quintessential classic trail races that existed. And we're moving away from it. And I think going back to your like curmudgeon like stance, like I'm there with you. I'm like, I look at the flower format and I see the value and the why, but I don't like it. Do I think that, going to your question, is like, in 5 years, does something like Broken Arrow exist? I mean, only because Brendan is core to the sport, and where he comes from and what he does it for is because he wants to create an experience for the runner, and he's not he really wanted to create this, and it just happened to grow into something like really, really phenomenal as far as like size and scope, right?
But he created it based on the parameters of what Skyrunning were saying they needed. That's what created the Rut. That's what created Broken Arrow Sky Race. That's what created Speed Goat. So that was the original. Like, look at what that created.
Right.
What are the Golden Trail putting out now?
I see what I understand what you're saying now. So you're saying in 10 years, what we're going to have is a bunch of like flower races all over the country, because that's basically what that's what we're moving toward. And I see, I mean, do I want the bastardization of trail running to happen? No, definitely not. You know, like I want to see more of the ruts. I want to see more of the broken arrows. Like that's, but to me, that's what I like. I want something that's hard, that pushes you. I don't want some cookie cutter, like, hey, we could put this on TV kind of format, because that's what makes it easy. Right. Like,
Have any of you guys run any of the Broken Arrow distances?
No, I have not.
I ran the 52 before it became a 46K, and it was essentially 2 loops of 26.
Yeah.
All the images, that was like the second year running, and I was completely infatuated by the images of that, the Stairway to Heaven section.
The Staircase to Heaven, yeah.
And then when you show up, you're running through a ski resort, right? I mean, it's not the most beautiful race out there. There's some sections on the upper loop that are gorgeous, but then you drop back down and you're just like, service road, forest road, back to finish, service road, right? Would not call Broken Arrow the most beautiful race in order to make a case for that a race like this would not happen now that we have the flower format. In fact, I think Mammoth Trail Fest is probably a similar example, and is a newer event and inspired by Broken Arrow. And I think this is what we're going to continue to see, which is the ski resorts are going to open up and then going to allow us to race. But the ski resorts have limited miles of trail and terrain. And so the courses are actually going to be a little bit more constrained and actually closer to a flower format, closer to sort of a, how do we get a loop here in order to get the mileage that we want? How
do we run a 50K in a little tight corner of a mountain, right? And to your point though, like that's how we're going to start seeing these numbers that you guys rattled off with all these world trail major events that have thousands and thousands and thousands of runners. Like the only way you're going to see that in America currently is if the ski resorts if you can make it happen on a ski resort. So,
yeah. Okay, good point. I'll make one last question, and then Mathias, come to you first, and then you can say what's in your mind. Do we see something in future where the flower format spawns into its own thing? Like, is this a format that could be totally independent of Golden Trail, and people actually thinking, actually, this is a format of a race that would really work well with our little mountain town?
I'm going to answer this absolutely. I mean, if you look at the popularity of the backyard ultras and people willing to race something for a very specific format, I think our sport is still open for race directors, events managers, race series operators to kind of look and see what's possible. I don't think everything has to rise to that level, and will never rise to the level of running around Mont Blanc through 3 different countries. Right? Not everything is going to achieve that level of epicness. But race directors are going to be playing with these formats. Yeah, I think they will, and I think that's encouraged. Why not?
I mean, I guess it just depends. Yes, like what I could see honestly is that Golden Trail World Series shows that you can create a product that you can televise. Like this is all hyperbole, right? Like then they see there's a demand to see this because if you can package up something that's like 60 minutes to 90 minutes, like people will sit down and watch it. You can tell compelling stories if you can get the right production value around it. And now all of a sudden someone sees an opportunity to say, well, I want to capitalize on this type of growth in the sport that's going to happen. And then they just create a series where like it has to be this way because we need to be able to package up and show this, and we need to be able to get 1 million views on it when we put it out on whatever TV, whatever like channels that we sell it and syndicate it to. And so I can see a future where that exists because I see where the growth of the sport is heading toward. And if it's when someone's going to figure out like that there's value in that kind of production quality. But it just takes a lot. You got to be able to burn a lot of capital to get there. And there's some people that are, Golden Trail World Series is doing these experiments. UTMB, is doing the experiments to try to how do we get the viewers? How do we get people that want to sit down and watch something that's packaged into a 2-hour format for them to view? And so I can't say no to your question, Aaron. Do I like it? No. Like the old school guy in me is like, God, we're going to be begging for the shaky drone cams on the 100-mile live stream when this is actually happening. So
let me put it like this, and this has actually just come to me as we've been chatting, but has Ethan Newberry created the first independent flower format race with the Tiger Claw?
So I love that format, honestly. I think it's very interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's so if the viewers don't know, like there's 3 routes to get up to I think it's Tiger Mountain, and it's a choose your own adventure where like if you go up one leg, you have to go down that same leg, but you have to go up all 3 of the legs, and you can pick when you go up those legs.
In which order you like, yeah.
In which order you like, right. I think it's interesting. I will tell you, I've never done the event. I think Mathias probably has a lot more insights in it because it's closer to his backyard. But the people really love this race. Like
it's
people really love this race.
Mathias?
I want to pick up a couple other things. And number one, I think you very briefly only mentioned this whole idea of the gold trails used to be the best races. And that's sort of the Formula One dilemma, right? As Formula One grew and as there was a resistance in Europe to support Formula One expanded and had races in a whole bunch of regions that weren't as iconic, and people, cried and were sad that iconic race courses weren't included. And so I would say we're at a point where Solomon has decided Golden Trails is something else now, right? They're way past trying to bring the iconic races together. And again, right, almost similar to the Formula One thing, part of their argument is also an environmental point of view. They're trying to have 2 races close together on the calendar that athletes can fly to one region and stay there and race 2 events and then fly back, minimizing flying. So there is actually some thought put into this that is beyond just greedy capitalism. And so I think we just have to get over the fact it's sad, but we do have to get over the fact that Golden Trails is a different product now. Bring Drive to Survive, bring new viewers in, and people will adopt what Golden Trails is now. Right?
And what about Tiger Claw?
Tiger Claw, yes. When we're talking flower format, then this is the event that comes to mind as an independently run event. I think it is ingenious in many ways, but also felt always a little bit overproduced. Like it was a little bit hard to figure out which event is actually happening, which year, course changes and stuff like that. I think in order to really feel like an event that becomes iconic, it needs to settle down a little bit. Like every year they're doing a different course and stuff. And so, but it's ingenious and it's cool. And for me as a race director, I love cool and different races, and let the market decide, if you will, let racers decide if they want to participate in something like that or not, right? Why not have quirky races on the calendar?
I came into this conversation not at all interested in flower format as an independent thing that people type in the same vein as a backyard ultra, and I'm leaving this conversation thinking, you could do something interesting there. but it's not golden. It's not on a golden trail. Will we leave it at that?
I could 100% get behind. I mean, like I said, dude, bring back 2019 Golden Trail World Series.
Can I ask something? Do we need to be done here, or can I ask something about 2019?
Go for it.
Were those live events, or were those Solomon TV days, weeks later, cut together best of reels? I don't remember.
They were weeks after.
Yeah,
they were.
It was.
Yeah,
it was
none
packaged.
of it was race. It was, and it wasn't really about the rate, a particular race. It could have been about Ryan Sands' FKT on the Drakensberg Traverse. It could have been about, there was a story. Ricky Gates, the bus run thing. It was a story about, and it built the athlete that was using their product, and it told a great story. And what do we tune in for and stay connected for? A story. So it was loosely connected to the sport.
I think that's the biggest piece that I'm worried. We won't lose it. We have the Trail Running Film Festival to show these stories weeks, years later, right? But this is something that I think we potentially might lose in our chase for live streaming the races. Previously, the only video footage, might have not even been video footage, might have been audio podcasts, was the stories weeks after the event, where people actually told us what went down, right? And some of that content was absolutely glorious. It was emotional. It was insanely inspiring. And we're chasing live streaming now. And I don't really know to what gain, other than that live sports needs to be live streamed. I think we're losing the storylines. We're losing the potential that these athletes get to tell their real story, because everything happens in real time. And viewers are then moving on because they've seen Francesco Pupi's overtaking on the last couple 100 meters already 400 times on Instagram. That is if that gets packaged now into a Solomon TV, right, into one of those, I don't know how many people are going to be tuning in. And maybe this flower format is saying, okay, that live streaming is here, and we need to try to actually make live streams interesting and exciting. And so we're trying this out. But I think we are losing these epic stories.
Yeah, the story thing isn't really evolving in the same way. I mean, those documentaries, those 8 to 12, 15-minute YouTube films, they don't exist to the same extent. Now, we do have new creators trying to create these things, and a lot of it does just have the smell of an influencer type, selling a brand, selling a personal brand. So they don't come across as well as the Solomon TV stuff. And Solomon only have so much money to put into this type of stuff, and that's why they're going the sport route. I would also maybe suggest that maybe controversial hot take here is that I think America as a nation is way more into competition, competitiveness, sports, live sports than rest of world, certainly of Europe. And it doesn't mean that we're not into sports, but I think we're more into story. I think that we have a different balance. I think you prioritize competition in almost every shape and form, from crossing the lights to crossing the road at the traffic lights to, just consumption of sports than what we do here. So, and there obviously North America is just a massive market for all of these companies, so they kind of pander to that a little bit.
Yeah, I just, the last thing I will say is I think that to kind of butt up against what Mathias was talking about, I agree that the attention span is finite, and you end up seeing this content just regurgitated to you in the algorithm when it picks up. Poopy's finish at the marathon was epic, right? But I think there's an opportunity to package content and tell a story around the race that's kind of brings me back to I remember watching some of the Kona, the way they would do Kona, and they would put out the triathlon a week later, but they would be following a bunch of athletes, and they would package it together in a way that you learned about the athlete, learned about their story, while they showcased how hard they were working to get whatever place that they got at Kona, right? And I think that was something that like was on ESPN2 or whatever, and it would just like similar to the way they used to do Tour de France, and like, you know, that was a little bit different, but like that's the kind of content that I think we're missing in the sport, is that like the week later you've taken all of this stuff that's come in from the live stream and you had an approach around a team that was on the ground getting content and then getting a little bit of backstory, spent a week piecing some of that together, and now you're putting out a 20-30 minute like more in-depth storytelling play around what happened at that race with the fill that's required to showcase and tell the story of the athlete. I think that's the kind of content that I think we're all craving. This is why I keep going back to like bring back 2019 World Trail Golden Trail World Series, but like that's what's missing as we kind of, to Mathias's point, like I don't know, like leap or sprint toward this like live coverage model that currently doesn't exist, but we're moving really quickly toward, you know, like as we kind of hone in what it is to tune into a live stream for a trail event.
And we do see this in other sports, and I don't want to trigger anyone by mentioning the UFC. Long-time UFC fan, maybe not so much of a fan in recent years, but I was a martial artist at one point, and that's where my connection into UFC came. But they will have a pay-per-view event, and in the weeks leading up to it, they'll have film crews with the athletes in the main event, co-main event, or depending on how big the card is. And it'll follow their story over 2-3 episodes. And it's obviously marketing to sell pay-per-view buys, but you're getting the athlete story. Where's the athlete story in trail? I think maybe my last point on this is I don't think we keep looking back to Salomon because we want to see we want them to do what they used to do because we loved it. But I think the takeaway here is we can't leave it to Salomon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll add really quickly, and I'm going to stop talking, but it's full circle because right now, whose job is it to tell the athlete's story? It's the fucking athlete's job to tell the athlete's story, and that's it. And the brands are basically forcing the athletes to be that pillar of content for them. And it's kind of like, it's time for us to, I don't know, like fight the power, man. It's time for us as people in the sport to say like, no, we need the brands and the athletes working together again to tell really dynamic stories.
I mean, if you want to go full circle, right? With the Trail Running Film Festival, we are, for our filmmaker fund, we are trying to raise $100,000 to get these stories made. And, I mean, it's not like I've set this up here, but I do think that there is some truth to that. If we are looking for these stories, if we want this stuff to be done, we need to get it funded. And if Hoka says, should I get for my athlete 3 weeks, 3 months later, a film produced that will come out and tell the story of the race from 3 months ago? Or should I sit him down 2 hours later after the race with Dylan at the Hoka Saloon and quickly talk about it? And they get the same eyeballs. If the ROI to them is the same, right? Then maybe they're saying, well, that's good enough, right? So I think we need to take it out of the brand's hands. To your point, we can't trust Salomon to make it. But in order to do that, we need to find a way of funding these films. And the only way we can fund these films is taking it out of the brand's hands.
Look, if people are interested to subscribe and follow a training vlog for Finn getting ready for Transgrancanaria, and they're excited about that, holy shit. I mean, would we not be creaming ourselves if Hoka was following Jim in 3-4 parts on his way to UTMB finale, on his way to States? This is the stuff that we want. All of the shoe brands should be making follow cam content about their star athletes, and that's all of the influencing that they need to do.
Yeah.
Period.
I mean, the Walmsley
We're
film
done.
show. Yeah.
Topic over. Mic drop.
Sorry, Troy.
No, it's all good.
Guys, thanks for tuning in. Leave a comment. Let us know your hot takes. Let us know if Troy speaks too much. If Mathias is cold as ice, we want to hear it. And thanks, guys. We will do this again soon.
Peace.
Thank
Lovely.
you.